Washington just got offered 5% of a company worth $852 billion. Anthropic looked at a similar offer and said, no thanks. We'd rather cut people a check instead. That's not corporate small talk. That's two of the biggest AI labs on the planet handing us two completely different answers to the same question. Who actually benefits from what they're building? We're going to be getting into that. We're getting into what actually sold and what actually died in this valley over the last 7 days. Live numbers, not a recap. And we're also going to get into the food fight nobody wants to admit they're about to have this weekend. And we'll close with the kind of local news that actually matters, right before this valley throws itself a 250th birthday party. Now let's start with the money, because this one's a doozy. OpenAI pitched the federal government on taking a 5% equity stake in the company. That's generous, somewhere around $42.6 billion, structured through a public wealth fund. The pitch was simple on the surface. Government gets a piece of the upside, and maybe Anthropic, Google, and Meta come along for the ride and do the same. Anthropic passed. Instead, they floated something different, a digital dividend, a tax on the actual value AI creates, paid out as an actual check to actual people. A stake in a private company is a piece of paper sitting in a government fund. Unless you personally have money in that fund, you'll never see a dollar of it. A dividend, that's different. A dividend shows up in a bank account. Yours, mine, the guy down the street who drives a delivery truck. One of these ideas is built to look generous in a press release. The other one is built to put money in the hands of the waitress, the plumber, the single mom working two jobs while these companies quietly reshape what her job even looks like 5 years from now. Watch which one gets more coverage this week. I'll bet you it's not the one that actually pays you. But that wasn't even the strangest move this week. For 18 days, the most capable version of one of the world's leading AI models was flat out illegal to use in this country. The Commerce Department held it under export restriction, the same category of designation you would expect on a piece of hardware leaving the country, not a piece of software you access through a browser. Then this week, they lifted it. Claude Fable 5 came back online globally. Its bigger sibling, Mythos 5, came back for a smaller group of approved organizations, of course, the richest, most successful organizations. That's not a bug fix. That's the government treating a piece of AI the same way it treats a controlled export leaving the country. You don't walk into that kind of situation assuming everything's fine because it was fine yesterday. If your business, your workflow, your entire content calendar depends on one company's frontier model, you just watched live proof that the ground under that model can move for reasons that have nothing to do with the technology and everything to do with what's happening in Washington that week. Build a backup into your stack, please. Don't marry one vendor's model, no matter how good it is right now. Mark Zuckerberg stood in front of his own staff this week and he told them on the record that AI agents, the exact thing his company spent billions reorganizing itself around, quote, hasn't accelerated the way he expected. That's not the bubble popping yet. That's the guy who bet the entire organizational chart on a technology, quietly moving his own goalposts in front of the very people he asked to go build it. The tools work. What hasn't accelerated is trying to turn a 70,000 person company on a dime. That's a management problem, wearing a technology costume. If you're a one-person shop, two-person shop, sitting on the sidelines waiting for AI agents to feel ready before you touch them, understand something clearly. You can deploy a single working agent inside your business faster than Meta can turn its entire ship. That delay Zuckerberg is describing is his delay. It was never yours to wait on. And Zuckerberg wasn't the only lab quietly admitting the last big swing didn't land. OpenAI is shutting down Sora, the viral video app that 6 months ago was the headline everywhere, and reportedly walking away from a billion-dollar licensing deal with Disney that came with it to refocus on enterprise products and a new custom chip. The reporting behind the scenes frames it plainly. Claude Code was eating their lunch on the developer side, so the resources got redirected. 6 months ago, Sora was AI replaced Hollywood. That was the story. Today it's dead, and the billion-dollar deal died with it. The lesson isn't that the consumer AI apps don't work. The lesson is that even the labs themselves don't know for certain which bets are going to land. They're improvising in public at a scale that would bankrupt anybody else, and they get to call it strategy. If you build a workflow, a content plan, or a client pitch around a tool like Sora, you just watch the rug get pulled with zero notice. That's the real risk of building your business entirely on a rented infrastructure you don't actually control. Plan for the platform underneath you to change because it will. And here's where it actually gets useful for your wallet. Claude Sonnet 5 became the free default worldwide this week, priced at $2 in, $10 out per million tokens. That's through the end of August. That's near flagship performance at a fraction of the flagship cost, handed to free users by default with no upsell required. Now, every excuse you've been carrying around about AI being too expensive to touch just got weaker again. Every month you want to put this to work is a month you spent paying full price for an excuse that already went stale. Now, Meta unveiled a brand new cloud business this week, built specifically to resell its excess AI computing power to outside customers, going head to head with Amazon, Microsoft, and Google in the process. Meta stock jumped about 9% the same day two of the AI infrastructure darlings, CoreWeave and Nibius. They dropped 14% and 17%. So if you flip that around, if Meta has so much spare AI computing power sitting around that they can resell it as a side business, then the whole get in now before AI compute runs out pitch. Infrastructure starts have been selling for 2 years just took a direct hit live on a trading floor. XAI opened up their voice agent builder to everybody this week. No code required, 5 cents a minute, sub-second response time from question to answer. That's the exact category we operate in every single day. So when a frontier lab ships a no-code voice tool at that price, the tooling itself stops being the pitch. Anybody with a laptop can grab a template now. What can't be templated is knowing which vertical it actually fits, which scripts converts a caller into a booking appointment instead of hanging up, which follow-up sequence actually closes instead of getting cold. The barrier to entry just dropped to almost nothing. The barrier to doing it right didn't move an inch. That's exactly the gap we built at Honor and Hire AI Voice and Honor Elevate to close that for people who didn't have the time or don't have the time to figure it out themselves. Palantir's CEO said publicly this week that major AI labs are chasing raw model power over actual enterprise usefulness, while American businesses are increasingly reaching for cheaper Chinese models despite the restrictions the government has put in place. He's not a neutral voice. Palantir sells the usefulness angle for a living, but he's not wrong just because he's biased. So when businesses are quietly routing around restrictions to save money, that tells you domestic pricing has pushed regular businesses out of useful and left them stuck paying for powerful they don't need. If someone offers you a small business to cut rate AI tool that sounds too good to be true, on the compliance side, ask one extra question before you say yes. Watch where the talent moves, not just where the benchmarks land. Reporting this week pointed to internal power struggles quietly eroding Google's edge in this race. Gemini 3 still tops some of the benchmarks, but it's reportedly slipping on coding specifically, and a string of high-profile researchers have walked out the door, including one name that jumped out, a Nobel-caliber scientist reportedly headed to Anthropic. A benchmark chart in a snapshot of last month. A researcher choosing when to spend the next 5 years of their career is a vote about where they actually think this whole thing is headed. And if you're picking a vendor to build your business on for the long haul, the vote is worth more than this quarter's leaderboard. One more before we leave AI today, and it's a good kind of unsettling. New research this week showed Claude Mythos scanning open source code. And in its first month, it confirmed 23,019 real vulnerabilities across 1,000 open source repositories, with independent teams verifying 90.6% of what it found. That's not a productivity headline. That's proof a huge chunk of the open source software quietly running half the internet had holes in it nobody found until an AI went looking for 30 straight days. If your business runs on off-the-shelf tools, and almost everybody's does, it's always worked fine. It was never the same thing as it's actually secure. Let's come back down to the ground here in Santa Clarita, because this is where money actually moves for most of the people watching this show. I was in the MLS myself this morning, pulling the last 7 days of inventory live, not a recap of last week's numbers, dressed up as new. 69 homes closed across this valley in the past 7 days. 86 new listings hit the market in the same window. 46 are sitting in the pending status right now, working their way towards a closing table. And on the other side of the ledger, 54 properties fell out of escrow completely, canceled, expired, or withdrawn combined. Inside that 7-day stretch, we saw 69 actually cross the finish line. For every 10 homes that closed this week, almost 8 fell apart somewhere along the way before they ever got there. That's not a slow market. That's a market actually punishing anybody who prices a listing wrong, stages it wrong, or market it like it's 2021 and buyers will forgive anything. The 69 that closed this week weren't lucky. They were positioned right from the first day, day one, priced to the actual data instead of what the seller wishes the number was. 85 listings took a price change in the same 7 days. Almost as many as sold outright, which tells you that sellers are getting the message midstream, adjusting instead of stubbornly sitting on a number the market already rejected. 23 came back on the market after falling out of a prior deal, which means even a home that's already failed once still has a second shot. If it comes back priced honestly the second time instead of relisted at the same number that didn't work the first time. Same lesson as the AI block a few minutes ago. The agents winning in this market right now are the ones who use real data in real time instead of using their gut to feel from 3 weeks ago. That's exactly why we built the flat fee model. Fixed fair fee. The way that we built it, when 54 deals are falling out of contract in a single week across the valley, an agent's job stops being hope and starts being precision. Pricing it right the first time, marketing it like a launch instead of just another sign in the yard, being available the second a buyer's agent has a question, not 3 days after they've already moved on to a different listing. If you're weighing whether to sell or just want to see how that fixed fair fee model actually works, head over to sellersonlyagent.com. And if you'd rather get out and walk a few houses yourself this weekend before the market moves again, you can go to Santa Clarita openhouses.com. That's where we're building that resource out. More coming about that soon. Now, for the part of a lot of us are about to walk straight into this weekend without thinking twice. The 4th of July is basically a 24-hour eating event with fireworks attached to the end of it. Barbecue, sides, potato salad, dessert table, a cooler that never actually empties no matter how many times you check it. There's nothing wrong with celebrating, but if you've ever white-knuckled your way through a holiday weekend and woken up Sunday feeling like you lost a fight you didn't even know you walked into, well, this next part, that's for you. Don't treat the 4th of July like a cheat day you have to survive from sunup to fireworks. Treat it like one meal that happens to fall inside of a day, not the entire day itself. It's like walking into a building on a call. You don't try to clear every room at once. You clear one room, then you clear the next room, methodically, without letting the whole building rattle you. Eat the burger. Actually enjoy the burger. Don't feel guilty about the burger. But then give your body an actual window afterward, 12 hours, 16. If you can manage it before you eat again. That's not punishment. That's giving your system room to process what you handed it instead of stacking plate on top of plate from noon straight to midnight. The real trap isn't the food itself. It's the story you tell yourself the next morning, where one plate becomes, well, I already blew it. And then it becomes a 3-day bender or a 3-week bender, which turns one honest holiday meal into a genuinely bad week. That story is the addiction talking, not the burger. You didn't fail because you ate barbecue on the 4th of July with your family. You'd only actually fail if you let one meal write the story for the rest of your month. So enjoy Saturday, all of it. Then get back to your window on Sunday like nothing happened, because honestly, nothing did. Watch who you're standing next to on Saturday as well. Not just what's on your plate. The people around a barbecue table talk you into a second plate a lot faster than you've ever talked yourself into that alone. It's not a character flaw. That's just how humans work in groups. Knowing that walking in means you can plan around it instead of getting surprised by it 9 o'clock when someone's already cutting you a second slice of pie. That's the whole conversation we keep building out over the last addiction, food fasting, and the honest version of recovery nobody's trying to sell you a shortcut on. Now, if any of that hit a little close to home just now, that's exactly why we're going to go deeper on it. Last thing before we get out of here today that actually matters more than anything else in this show, Saturday is the 4th of July, and this valley does it right every single year. The parade steps off at 9 o'clock in the morning in Old Town Newhall, and this year's theme is 250 years of this country's freedom, its people, its places, and its history. You're going to see scout troops, classic cars, local businesses, floats, nonprofit groups. The whole town shows up for that one event every year without fail. Earlier that same morning, 7:15 sharp, Newhall Park hosts the Independence Day Classic, a 5K, a Master's Mile walk, and a Kids K if you actually want to earn that barbecue plate before you eat it instead of after. And once the sun goes down, the Spirit of America fireworks show lights up over Valencia Town Center right at about 9:15 p.m., with Six Flags running its own Star-Spangled Night that same evening out at Magic Mountain. The parade theme isn't a slogan somebody picked for a banner. 250 years of people, places, and history is what this whole show is actually about underneath everything else, giving credit to people who show up and do the actual work in this valley, in this country, day in and day out without asking for a headline. That's the whole idea behind something new we've been building. The Honor Roll Show over at thehonorrollshow.com. It's built to spotlight the actual people in this community worth knowing about, not just whatever's trending this week. Worth a look if it's a lane you care about. More coming about that soon. A government stake in a company is a promise printed on paper. A dividend is a check that actually shows up in your hand. A voice AI tool that costs 5 cents a minute is only as good as the person who knows which problem to point it at. A home that closes in this market isn't luck, it's preparation, done right. Before the sign ever goes on the yard, a holiday weekend doesn't have to become a lost month. It's one meal, not a verdict on who you are. And a parade celebrating 250 years of people and history is a pretty solid reminder of what actually matters once the headlines quiet back down. AI for everyone, not just for the people who get offered a seat at the table before the rest of us even know the table exists. That's the mission. That's the show. Go enjoy your weekend, and we will see you back here Monday. Be well.